In-N-Out burger out of the wrapper on a plate.
The year is 1948. The first Polaroid camera goes on sale, a loaf of bread costs 14 cents, and a new burger joint is opening up in California. This is what it was really like to eat at the first ever In-N-Out burger.
I think I just had my first orgasm.
No golden arrow.
The universe sent me a sign. Literally. An arrow!
Fast food franchises pay really close attention to their brand. Every decision, big or small, usually comes down to a committee. Logos, uniforms, and menu items are all things that get modified. And for In-N-Out, it's no different. It's a common sight to see the golden arrow adorning In-N-Out signs, but there was a time when this striking imagery was missing from the signs. Before the arrow was added, most In-N-Out locations simply had a regular old rectangular sign which displayed their name. In 1954, the arrow was added and history was made.
History, learning.
According to the founders and trusted sources, the arrow signified two mottos. We all work under the same arrow, and this arrow points to pride. It may seem like a small change, but it took no time at all for people to rally around this imagery. Soon, all In-N-Out restaurants in operation were given the same treatment, and the arrow was added to all of their signage as well. What may seem like a small business decision at first actually reverberated within the company to form a look and feel that transformed them from a fledgling drive-in burger joint into the powerhouse of fast food that we know today.
Don't mind if I do.
Drive-in dining.
And then?
No, that's it.
In the 70 or so years that In-N-Out has been around, many fast food chains have come and gone. In most cases, customers would drive to a restaurant, get out of their car, and then either enjoy the food at the location or immediately drive away. And there's nothing wrong with this business model, but In-N-Out knew they could do better. In order to satisfy the ever-growing need for food to be as fast as possible, In-N-Out established the first ever drive-in dining model.
This could be a game changer.
This would allow motorists to remain in their car as they waited for their food, which saved time, overhead, and grew the brand's popularity. Car hops were dispatched to people's vehicles, where they would take the customer's order and then deliver it to the cooks inside. People loved the spectacle and atmosphere that came along with this chain, and sooner rather than later, In-N-Out parking lots were filled up as news spread about how fast they were churning out food. What may seem like an insignificant business decision shot the chain to success. It didn't take long for other chains to notice, and soon most of the chains that we know and love implemented some sort of drive-in system to compete with In-N-Out.
My idea.
Meet Harry and Esther.
From his humble beginnings as a... Stay standing.
If you were to visit an In-N-Out when they first opened, chances are you would meet the two owners in some form or function. Harry and Esther Snyder are the two minds behind this great chain. The pair had met in Seattle, Washington just a year prior to the first restaurant opening in 1948. When the first store went up, Harry and Esther were the only two employees working. Esther took care of finances and kept the books, while Harry prepared food and worked the front counter of the restaurant. It was a good system at first, but as the popularity of the restaurant increased, it became clear that Harry and Esther would not be able to do this without help.
It's too much! It's too much!
The two began to hire employees to support their business, making sure that all new hires shared the same passion for In-N-Out that Esther and Harry did.
I'd like to apologize for the behavior of my passion.
The origin of the two-way speaker.
55 peppers and 155 taters.
Okay, that'll be $680.
Okay.
The drive-in experience was alive and well at almost every In-N-Out in the U.S., and people were abuzz with the news that you could go to this hamburger shop and eat in your car while the staff took care of delivering the food. But some people were still searching for something more.
You want more? We want more.
The owners of the restaurant devised a plan to streamline the process even more. Harry Snyder had been hard at work developing a two-way radio in his basement that could elevate his business to another level. This strange radio would allow customers to speak with the staff inside an In-N-Out location without ever leaving their car. Enter the drive-thru. While it would take some years for this technology to be applied to the drive-thru model we know today, the two-way speaker that Harry developed was certainly the prototype that would allow it all to be possible.
And the rest was history.
Before we get to more time traveling at In-N-Out, if it's your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
Thank you. Next!
On the cusp of greatness.
It's gonna be legend, wait for it, dairy.
While it may have been difficult to see a future of greatness when you visited the first In-N-Out location, success was not far off. Even though the fledgling shop was only operating out of one Southern California location, it would only be 2 years before a second location would open. Then, a mere 10 years after the company's inception, they had grown to 5 locations. From there, the business started to expand exponentially. Shortly after the turn of the millennia, the company had over 300 locations, all located within a short radius of their original store.
How cool is that?
Sometimes it's easy to take for granted the fact that we have no shortage of fast food chains, but these locations didn't rise from nothing. Often the blood, sweat, and tears of the founders and employees are what allow for this rapid expansion, and the case was no different with In-N-Out. Harry and Esther Snyder knew that they had a winning idea on their hands, and even though they would both pass away before their hard work came to fruition, their legacy is still felt in the company's business model to this day. Humble beginnings often breed true greatness, and this is no different for In-N-Out.
Humble 5?
You know it. I couldn't possibly.
Where are the palm trees?
Palm trees are very sweet, 'cause like the beach.
Some of the most iconic imagery associated with In-N-Out is the crossed palm trees that can be found in front of most of their restaurants. It's a fun little attraction that lets you know you're getting close to having a really great burger. But there was a time when these crossed palm trees couldn't be found outside of their outlets. After the first location had opened in Baldwin Park, California, and subsequent locations started to follow, Harry Snyder realized that palm trees were often found growing in strange directions outside of their Southern California stores. This gave Harry the idea of a lifetime. In response to his days as a film and TV buff, Harry had taken inspiration from the film It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, in which buried treasure was marked by the intersection of letters.
Look! It's a big W, I tell you!
Harry decided that X marked the spot for delicious food and decided to implement the idea of the crossed palm trees into their own brand and imagery. In order to complete this feat of horticulture, the trees were tied together when they were young. After years of growth, the pair of trees would lean in on each other, at which time the cord which held them together could be cut. At this stage, the trees were true to their shape and continued their growth in the iconic X shape that In-N-Out fans would come to recognize. Snyder considered each location to be a source of treasure, and fans of the chain were quick to follow these strangely grown palm trees all over the state of California.
We've arrived. X marks the spot.
What even is animal style?
I know all 7 animal styles.
Fast food fans are a particular bunch, and as a result, fast food chains are no stranger to the customer who wants to modify their order. This is the practice of taking something from the menu and either adding or removing certain items in order to fit the customer's taste. This is how some of the most famous items were created at In-N-Out. Animal style is a commonly referred to name for fries or burgers that came with a mustard base, chopped onions, sandwich spread, and pickles. As the story goes, animal style items were first created by surfers who would hang out at the In-N-Out parking lot after a day on the waves. When they started ordering their burger patties to be grilled in mustard and topped with the extra ingredients, the name came as a natural extension. Employees of In-N-Out would often refer to these surfers as animals because of their rowdy behavior and habit of hanging out around the stores.
Why? Because.
As a result, the name stuck, and soon a lot of customers were making similar modifications to their food orders. Several years later, animal-style fries and burgers were a permanent fixture on the menu. What may seem like a simple idea was actually anything but. Sometimes feedback from the customers is what elevates a brand to the next level, and we can thank a couple of raucous surfers for giving us this culinary inspiration.
Gross, huh?
No, it's perfect.
25-cent burgers.
I said no.
It's just 25 cents.
Can you imagine a time when everything on a fast food menu would be considered a value? Well, even though the price of fast food and living in general has crept up in recent years, there was a simpler time when you could stop at an In-N-Out and grab a burger for only 25 cents. This meant that if you wanted to walk away with a burger, drink, and fries, you would only have to part with a measly $1 and you would be on your way.
Take your hat off, boy, that's a $1 bill!
While you'd be hard-pressed to escape from an In-N-Out with anything for under $1 these days, the chain still has some of the best value of any fast food restaurant in the U.S.
Good deal.
Cigarettes and coffee.
What kind of coffee is it?
Burgers, fries, shakes, and soft drinks. These are the pillars of any fast food restaurant. But there was a time when a few peculiar items could be found on In-N-Out's menu. Before the world figured out the adverse side effects of nicotine products like cigarettes, it was common practice to buy them at just about every store and restaurant in the U.S., and In-N-Out was no different. A few years after the Baldwin Park location opened up, they decided that they would try their hand at this business model. Cigarettes and coffee were offered as a dynamic duo on the menu, and people thought nothing of it. Cigarettes could be bought just about everywhere, including in vending machines and on airplanes. So it seemed only natural that the chain would serve the demographic of people who enjoyed a smoke after their meal. It wouldn't last long, however, and a few years after they graced the menu, they were 86th.
You shall not pass!
In-N-Out chose to lean into their customers' desire for food and would focus more on a dining experience rather than becoming a smoking lounge. On the back of this decision, it wouldn't take long, by about the mid-1960s, for health organizations to dig into smoking and realize that it had many negative effects on the populace. It seemed like In-N-Out was once again ahead of the curve and faced little backlash for the appearance and then disappearance of cigarettes on their menu.
Just a little bit. I can't stress the littleness of it enough.
Bonus.
Congratulations on making it all the way to the bonus round.
In 2010, Lindsay Snyder was handed the reins of In-N-Out. She was the only surviving granddaughter of Harry and Esther and would go on to become the company's 6th CEO. Lindsay had many choices in the direction of the company, but chose to stick to the core values that her grandparents had instilled into the company's structure.
You don't turn your back on family.
The idea of franchising and expanding came into the conversation, but Lindsay refused to mess with the tried-and-true method that had raised the company to success. While Lindsay became one of the first and youngest female billionaires in the country, she didn't do this at the expense of the company that her grandparents had worked so hard to build.
Good choice.
The freshest ingredients around.
Oh, it's so fresh.
Have you ever wondered what makes In-N-Out's business model so successful? Aside from offering unique and delicious choices that people go crazy for, their supply chain is also tight as a drum. While freshness was never an issue at the original location, once the brand began to expand, the issue had to be considered once more and more locations were added. In-N-Out's general rule for expansion is that no store can be built more than 300 miles from the commissaries at which In-N-Out sources their ingredients. This means that all of their ingredients are arriving in the freshest possible state. Their burgers are never frozen, simply refrigerated, and this is made possible because stores are less than a day's drive away from the locations that provide the ingredients. What does this mean for the customer? Well, you can count on the fact that the burger you're ordering didn't come from under a warming lamp, and the vegetables used to top your burger were picked just recently.
This is a tasty burger.
All these factors combined catapulted In-N-Out into one of the most famous fast food chains in the world, and fans are just glad to be a part of that history.
The show goes on!
Show us some love. Tap or click on another great video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. Thanks.